2 days ahead of schedule, the Surface Water Coalition turned in their draft groundwater management plan to the Department of Water Resources. While we don't know the down and dirty details, they tell us their plan will promote a healthy eastern Snake River Plain aquifer while protecting property rights, upholding the Constitution of Idaho, and guaranteeing an adequate water supply for future generations. Big tab. All those issues we've waded into in Wednesday's Water Rights Focus show. So this plan will be used in continuing those negotiations between surface water users and groundwater users to avoid future water curtailments. This arbitration has gotten the attention of Idaho's top leaders, with Governor Brad Little chipping in $10 million to get this new deal done and fix these recurring problems. Today, Joe Paris digs into, well, what that money might do and what's the progress on a water deal.
I think we're in a good place. I got asked yesterday about, are we there? And I said, never say never until the final handshake and signatures are done. It's not black and white, and I have to tell them, ask them, sometimes beg them that we're all in this together in agriculture, and that if we don't do the right thing, it's going to default to who we don't want it to default to, whether it's a U.S. Supreme Court like what happened in Texas with New Mexico and Colorado, or in other states where either Congress, the U.S. Supreme Court, or a federal court intervenes. And so that's my constant message to them.
What do you think the biggest, contention is right now? I mean, it's a really complicated issue.
It is a very complicated issue, and it's embedded in our Constitution, and then there's a lot of laws, and then there's a lot of court cases that all entail that. But it's like so much what I do, it's all predicated on growth and the fact that there's more and more growth and efficiency.
When I talk to agriculture operations on both sides of the debate, one of the themes is there needs to be investment in making sure that the water system from a century ago is modernized, and that takes a lot of money. I understand that your office yesterday made a major announcement, millions of dollars. What's the announcement? How will it help?
It was $10 million more that had already been appropriated by the legislature. Basically, I asked the Water Board to spend it on what they think will be the most conducive project, but these are for recharge. When we first started talking about recharge 20 years ago, there were a lot of people that said, oh, that's voodoo, it doesn't work. We know it works, but we also know it works better in some places than it does in others. We're learning how to measure through technology the most efficient way to recharge, and we know recharge works. We know the cheapest place to store water is in that aquifer.
Do you think it's possible to strike a deal in the near future that would last for decades? Or do you think this is realistically something that naturally everyone's going to have to come back to the table every few years?
Yes and yes. What I ask them to do, the mitigation plan, means that they will have surety next year that they'll be able to plant their crops. Food processors will be surety that there'll be potatoes there, that there'll be malt barley there. But as we learn more about how the aquifer works, as we learn more about metering, as we learn more about the climate, then we'll continue to have to do that. But what we want to see is that turnaround.
And I've spoken this week with others who have a really good window into how the negotiations are going. And of course, we saw, as Brian highlighted here at the top of the show, that a plan has been submitted by the Surface Water Users Coalition. We also know that before October 1st, groundwater and surface water users have a deadline set by the governor to sit down and hash out a mitigation plan. It is encouraging from the people I've spoken with, but as you heard the governor say, a deal is not done until it's done.
And if it's not done, it could revert back to the 2016 agreement or 2015 agreement, which went into effect in 2016. And speaking to those involved in a legal aspect when it comes to these water rights, you don't want this to be settled in courts, because that's where they pick winners and losers, and they don't want that to happen.
Because there is a situation where the farmers can get together and they can come and say, all right, we'll take this, we'll give this, we'll take this, we'll give that. When it comes down to a court, it's pretty absolute, and you will have one party that'll feel like they got a very bad deal.
Right. All right. We'll keep tabs on that. Thank you very much, Joe.